Trust you're enjoying being part of Finacle Conclave so far. I am Mohit Joshi, President at Infosys and Chairman of the Board at Edgeweb Limited. It is my great pleasure today to host Ashok Vaswani, CEO of Consumer Banking and Payments at Barclays, for this fireside chat on scaling digital at Barclays, the CEO perspective. Barclays Bank is among the oldest banks in the world in continuous operation under the same legal identity since its establishment in 1690. In addition to its pre-eminent pedigree, Barclays has also had the distinction of having pioneered one of the greatest banking inventions of the 20th century when it launched the world's first ATM, ready for commercial use in 1967. Coincidentally, that year was also marked by a major foot and mouth disease outbreak in the UK. Now, almost half a century later, with the pandemic looming large, the COVID-19 pandemic, how does Barclays view what many think of as a potential takeoff point for a major transformation on the banking business? To help us understand this today, we have the privilege of hearing from someone with a reputation for having transformed Barclays from an analog to a digital company and having pioneered many innovative people-first initiatives. Prior to being at Barclays, Ashok spent nearly 2 decades with Citigroup. Ashok, thanks so much for making time to be with us here today.
Thanks, Mohit. Very nice to be with you.
Thanks. So, Ashok, no discussion today starts without a reference to the pandemic and the strange times in which we're living. This situation also has meant that we have the first virtual session of Finacle Conclave. In this context, right, what has been Barclays' greatest learning from the ongoing pandemic? Understandably, it has created challenges, but do you see opportunities as well?
So, Mohit, first of all, I hope you and your family and everybody is keeping safe in this crazy pandemic. I know we caught up a couple of months ago. I hope that continues to be the case. It's been one hell of a roller coaster ride, right? Initially, it was just making sure that the bank is resilient, it can kind of stand up, and it's actually quite incredible and a credit to the entire financial institution around the world that virtually no one, or at least no one I'm aware of, actually missed a beat. So that's quite incredible. And then, of course, it was regulators, the government programs, all of that kind of good stuff. Managing customers, helping them through these difficult times. Managing colleagues, and I think we should talk a little bit about that more. That's very, very important. And look, I think there are lots of things that we have learned and a lot of opportunities that have arisen from this pandemic.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's absolutely been it's a complex situation, right? You've got to manage your clients, you've got to manage your teams, and most importantly, you have to manage yourself because it's been hard for us individually as well. And this is a question which I guess goes to, leadership style and to experience. What have been your priorities and learnings in this period? I mean, how hard has it been, for you personally?
So, Mohit, I must say this has not been easy for me, even personally. The most difficult thing for me, before everything else, first thing I must say is that we are hugely blessed, and I'm deeply grateful, right? We are hugely blessed. I'm deeply grateful. But I've gone through my own emotional roller coaster. The most difficult thing for me has been my daughter lives out in San Francisco. That's a far way away. It's a 13-hour time difference. And that's been extremely kind of stressful. The second thing is, the team, our team at Barclays, making sure that they were there and they were, ready to take this on. As one of the team members, I wanted to be there for them, right? I'm really pulling the team together at this difficult time, saying we're in this together. We'll help each other to kind of get out of it. I think that's what has been my greatest effort and focus in the last 9 months.
I think that really has made a difference because it's almost like you take care of the team and the team will take care of the customer.
Exactly correct.
The family piece is important as well. For me, it's been having a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old effectively studying from home and trying to juggle work and juggle the kids. It has been an interesting challenge for all of us. But moving on from from the personal to the uh, overall shifts that we're seeing, Ashok. So COVID-19 has accelerated obviously long-standing shifts that we were seeing in consumer and and business towards digital. What do you think are some of the trends that will define the industry in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah. So Mohit, I'm sure you've got newfound respect for your school teachers, for your kids' school teachers. It's homeschooling is not easy. But moving on to the business side, I think you're absolutely right, Mohit. This 2020 will be an inflection year when history is written, because the pendulum in terms of digital and digitization has swung quite aggressively. It was happening at some kind of high secular trend, but it's really kind of taken off in 2020. I think there are a couple of things that are really, really important, right? I think the first thing is if you think about, let's say, large corporates and stuff like that, all of them to some extent have had to dabble into financial services. If anything else, they've had to learn how to do e-commerce, m-commerce in a completely different way, take payments, have the ability to kind of link up systems, all of that kind of good stuff. Two, small businesses have had to do the same, right? And it's been tougher for the small businesses than the large corporates. And what the small businesses have done is actually latched on to e-commerce platforms. So, for example, the Amazon Marketplace or Deliveroo and stuff like that. But the owners of these marketplaces have obviously, taken their share because they own the last mile, and therefore SMEs have had actually a double bite at their profits, and they'll have to think about what happens kind of next. The customer, if you think about the customer has actually created a kind of cocoon, right? Think about creating your own kind of moat around your home, and you kind of control what goes in and control what goes out with a lot of being very, very careful about it. And that's why it's no surprise that folks like Amazon, Netflix, mobile banking, and all those kinds of things have really, really taken off during this crisis. And look, I think we're still in the medical phase of this crisis.
Yes.
There's a lot of government support that has gone into it. I'm sick and tired of using the word unprecedented, but I can't find a better word because the amount of money the governments have kind of put into the economy, irrespective of which country, somewhere between 15 to 20% of the GDP across the world has gone into these various economies. Now, that's never going to go on forever. And as the governments kind of withdraw, this is, the economic downside of that is going to be, very, very, very hard. And we'll have to manage that extremely carefully. I was on a call with Her Majesty's Treasury yesterday, talking about, how we should be kind of transitioning through this. It's a very important transition the government will have to make.
No, you're absolutely right. It's very hard to take the punch bowl away, and in a much more limited sense, we had the taper tantrum after the GFC, where the
Yes.
markets reacted so violently to the to the stimulus being taken away. And you're right. I mean, this time around, the stimulus has been orders of magnitude higher. And so, apart from obviously the move to e-commerce, the move to electronic payments, the growth of platforms, you're saying that this is something that we have to watch for carefully as well, and it really makes sense. And so, Ashok, just moving back a little bit to the digital transformation journey at Barclays, right? I mean, this is something that in the UK market and in the developed market, you really espoused and and sponsored. It had a lot of success. It has had a lot of success. Are there any insights that you could share on the challenges and the lessons learned, which would be useful because everybody's on the same journey now?
So, Mohit, it's been an incredible journey. And I wish I could have told you that I had a game plan and I was executing towards the game plan. That was honestly not true. But I think fundamentally, the starting point is what's the North Star for the customer? The customer is North Star. If the customer is using a whole bunch of technology to live his or her life, right? When she's communicating, when she's entertaining, when she's working, when she's, trying to be productive, she's using different types of technology and transport. Every single thing was kind of changing. Then to expect that customer to go back to the old ways to do their banking, it's not going to happen, right? And therefore, staying focused on the customer and then working back from the customer and saying what needs to change. I think the single biggest learning for me is that ultimately it's about changing the culture and mindset of the organization, right? If you can't change, you can spend as much money as you want on technology. Technology, I'll come to very smart people like you and your team, and you will do a whole bunch of great stuff for me, no doubt. But if I don't get the culture and the mindset of my organization, we're dead out of the water, right? And therefore, I always say in a digital world, it's really about people. After you manage the culture and mindset of the organization, the other thing you got to do is you've got to carry all your stakeholders with you. Now, that may be more relevant in the UK than other parts of the world, but how do we make sure that we don't leave people behind, right? The vulnerable people, the people who can't get on to the digital bandwagon. How do we carry those various stakeholders like MPs and regulators and move them along this kind of journey in a sensible kind of way? So it's been an incredible ride. Been bumps, but taking a 328-year-old bank from analog to digital, that's been fun.
No, it's been a remarkable journey, Ashok, and I like the point that you made about taking people with you, because initially I thought you were referring to the team, but then as you went further, I got a sense that you were talking about the many initiatives that you'd sponsored, right? The common data sets to MPs of what was happening to the local economies, the work that you'd sponsored around the Digital Eagles program to teach older people new digital skills. So it's a very comprehensive approach that you'd pioneered, and that taken together with the need to change the culture and the mindset of banks to being much more singularly focused on the customer, I think has made all the difference.
The Digital Eagle program, Mohit, has been one of the most rewarding things I have done in my career. It is, the stories just leave you stunned.
No, I'm sure, and especially with the pandemic, right? I can just think of the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that Barclays employees taught to use iPads and smartphones, and think of how useful that is, because there's no human connection without technology at this time.
So, Mohit, in the pandemic, our Digital Eagles actually went to healthcare houses and homes and connected those healthcare homes with their families. Can you imagine, you're locked up, you're 80 years old, 85 years old, you haven't seen your family in a long period of time, and the ability to just talk to your kids, your grandkids, keep a communication going. Can you just imagine how it frees the mind? And the Digital Eagles did that.
It's been a remarkable program, among many others, Ashok. So I was going to ask you a question on technology, but I'm going to carry on this vein of discussion. And this is that research more recently shows that customers want empathy and financial support from their banks. This is even more true post pandemic. And there's also been a sort of a discussion around the balancing of profit-focused approach with broader social expectations that communities have from banks to play a role beyond just the shareholder return. You've been a huge proponent of the concept of purpose and of purposeful banking. Could you just give us a sense of what you're thinking about balancing the stakes of multiple stakeholders is, and how you feel that this may change banking in the future?
Sure, Mohit. Let me break that question. Let me make it into two questions, right? One is this whole notion of empathy and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
When you're working in financial services and stuff like that, you tend to forget what normal people experience, right? So, we call it the mortgage business, for example. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. What do you mean the mortgage business? This is somebody's home. This is usually going to be the biggest asset this person is going to buy. What that person is buying is a nest egg. It's a fortress. It's where the person is going to, have the ability to actually relax completely and disconnect from the outside world. This is much, much more than even the physical home. It's a mental place of peace and happiness with his family. You can't get desensitized to it and call it a mortgage. Why do banks not celebrate when somebody pays off their mortgage? I think we should celebrate the fact that somebody's paid off their mortgage. A mortgage is a very binary thing. You're dying to get a mortgage till you get it. The minute you get it, you hate it, right? So just look at the emotion that goes into a mortgage. Let's go to a less emotional topic. For many, 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 many years, all these years, and even till today, Mohit, if I send money to the US because I have expenses there, my bank now tells me that I've sent the money. My bank never tells me I've received the money, right? I mean, why? Why not? Why can't my bank tell me the money is actually reached, it's credited, it's kind of done? Now, India, for example, actually, it's very, very nice, right? In India, it's beautiful. You transfer money from one bank to the other. The sending bank sends you an SMS. The receiving bank sends you an SMS. And if you do it on the real-time statement, you literally get two messages at the same time. The comfort that gives you, right? Even though I've been in financial services for a long period of time, is kind of incredible. This kind of empathy, and when you go into a difficult situation, you get into a fraud, you get into these kind of things, somebody who understands it and is actually able to talk you through it and say, we are there to help you. That's a big deal, right? That's a really big deal. And that's what counts. And therefore, empathy is very, very important. Now, linked to this, and I've become a huge believer, not only for banking, Mohit,
Yeah.
I think every single company must have a societal purpose, right? And this is not CSR, Mohit. This is not CSR. Look, at the end of the day, what is society? Society is nothing but customers plus prospects, right? If society is nothing but customers plus prospects, why wouldn't you keep a societal goal, right? And the societal goal, again, this doesn't have to be CSR. Let's go to a very cliched example. What did Apple do? Apple has made technology easy. Why is it that no Apple product comes with a manual on how to use the product? Why is it that you put an Apple product out of the box and it does not need charging? That kind of purpose to make technology simple and intuitive, how it has changed our life, right? And you don't need to go that far, right? In the UK, I don't know, Mohit, if you know Citizens Advice. You see what they've done. You see what the Singapore government has done in terms of dealing with its citizens. It is just absolutely incredible. So purpose, every single company, irrespective of what sector, I sincerely believe that delivering to a societal purpose is really critical.
Well, that's very well said, Ashok. I take your earlier point as well about thinking more deeply about what our product or what our service really means to the customer, right? What is he or she actually going to be using it for? What value, what emotional appeal does the product have for them? And then building a proposition, around it. And the second point on social purpose also is well made. In a sense, it's a very positive thing that it's being talked about much more openly. Earlier, this would be seen as a sort of a soft topic, right? As you mentioned, maybe part of a CSR committee. The fact that it is not being discussed in boardrooms and is so central to to most organizations, I think is a very, very positive development.
And what the reason I like the Apple example is nobody can accuse Apple of being cheap, right? No Apple products are cheap. Apple is about the richest company there is in the world, right? $2 trillion. right?
Yeah.
Apple is sitting on God knows how much cash.
Yeah.
But yet their purpose about making technology simple and intuitive is what has got them ahead of everybody else.
No, absolutely. And this again goes to the mindset shift that you spoke about initially. And that mindset shift, Ashok, the one thing is in banking, technology has usually been very complex, very monolithic. You've spoken about this and you espoused the idea that build once, use everywhere, make technology fungible, use the cloud, use other modern tech. Can you give us a sense of what is your approach or what was your approach at Barclays to technology? How do people, business and technology really come together in your vision?
So Mohit, the first thing I want to tell you is technology is no longer a vertical on the organization chart. Technology is a horizontal. Every single thing has to go. There's no such thing as having, it's like English, right? You won't employ somebody who can't speak English for the most part in an English speaking country, right? It's hard for me in Barclays UK to employ somebody who doesn't speak a word of English. I think that's where we got to get with tech. Basic tech knowledge and stuff like that has just to be considered. Just basic and hygiene has to happen, right? Tech skills basically have to happen. You got to learn that kind of thing, right? Then it's about how you build speed and agility, right? And things are moving so fast, that you can't build everything yourself. So how do you partner? Two, how do you partner with people who have that same mindset? And three, if you're partnering with people who got the same mindset, how do you become the consolidator of all of this, right? What is it that you must own? At least the way I think about it, I must own the customer experience. I must own the customer journeys. I must own the data. I have to own all the regulatory aspects, right? The reporting and all that kind of good stuff. The rest, I can actually partner with people who have the same mindset as me and actually bring it all together. And make sure that my partners are also moving at that same rapid space, right? Which allows me to reconfigure the way the bank is run.
So that itself is such a fundamental change, Ashok. I'm sure from the way that you saw banking at the start of your career, when everything had to be sort of owned, right? I mean, everything front to back, from the manufacturing to the distribution to after sales service, everything had to be owned by the same bank. So this is a fairly systemic shift that that you're talking about.
It is very, very significant, Mohit. I mean, when I started my banking career, that is the time I was first introduced to email. I mean, there was no global standard of email, but Citibank had its own email called CityMail, and I was like fascinated that you could talk to anybody in the organization around the world. So it's been quite the journey.
So Ashok, you've had an instrumental role to play in in building out the consumer banking business at Barclays over the past 10 years. What's your vision for the business over the next next 3 to 5 years? And from that perspective, what would your priorities be for 2021?
See, Mohit, Barclays, like you correctly said right in the introduction, is 328 years old. So change is built into our DNA. We have seen more change than anybody else, right? The Bank of England was founded after us. America is a teenager compared to us, right? We've seen the plague, we've seen world wars, we've seen pandemics, we've seen we've seen it all, right? Well, I thought we had seen it all till this virus, but we've seen a lot, right? Yes. And therefore, change is embedded into our DNA, and we've got to continue to change. What is beautiful about us and where we find ourselves right now is, number one, we're a universal bank. So we are about the only European investment bank, which gives us great balance. It's like literally flying the plane on two engines, right? So when the investment bank is soaring, if consumer doesn't do that well, it's okay. The plane still kind of does well, and the other way around as well. So number one, we're a universal bank, and we're the only European investment bank. That puts us in a strong position. Two, we have a very strong franchise, very strong, deeply embedded franchise in the UK, but we can take a much more of a challenger approach particularly into Europe and the US, right? And that makes it fascinating. When I'm in the UK, the kind of hat I wear, and then I take off from Heathrow and land in Philadelphia, the hat has to change. Or I land in Hamburg, and the hat has to change. And how we kind of transition there and build out, taking a challenger mindset versus a deeply embedded mindset in the UK is very, very fascinating. And I think we can build it out, and we can take the learnings because there are commonalities, different commonalities, and taking those commonalities and actually building out the business at both the ends gives us great opportunity.
So Ashok, there are many social causes that you've been very passionate about, but one that I've heard you talk frequently about is Pratham. Can you share a little bit of detail about this organization and how the audience can potentially get engaged with and give back to this wonderful institution?
Mohit, thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. I've been a huge beneficiary of education. And what I've learned in my life, that old adage that if you feed somebody, you feed the person once. But if you teach a person how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. And that's what education has done for me. And I think giving back in the field of education is so critical. I've been associated with education through my life, whether it was, helping found SP Jain Institute, on the INSEAD board, and multiple such organizations. But I think Pratham takes the cake because Pratham is one of the best NGOs in India, doing some incredibly good work, very, very good work in the country. They live by their motto, every single child in school learning well. And all of us and everybody who's listening to this conversation, if you feel as blessed as I do, and if you feel that you've gained and are now in a position to give back, you can make somebody's life. For just 14 pounds a year, you can teach somebody for 3 or 5 years out in India. The kind of work they're doing is incredible. Get engaged, learn about Pratham, and if you can give back, I would be deeply grateful.
Thank you, Ashok. In fact, I haven't been a part of Pratham, but this is very encouraging. I will go back and look at it and see how I can personally contribute also.
Thank you, Mohit.
Thank you so much, Ashok. Stay safe, and thank you for making time, and thank you to your team as well. Thank you, Louise.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Louise.
So welcome. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you to all the attendees for making time to attend. I do hope that there was much that you could take away from the discussion. Do feel free to come back to view the recording. Look out for the follow-up mail from our team. Please feel free to share the same with your colleagues as well. I hope you will stay tuned to Finacle Conclave and enjoy the many high-quality speakers and discussions that we have lined up for you. Do have a look at the agenda on the event landing page for the details.